All right, we are officially live. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Take Action Podcast with Adam Kurz. I am here today doing my 191st episode of the Take Action Podcast. It's insane how many years we've put into this already. And I'm very excited to have Ana Bozovic. It's not your first time being on our podcast, so thank you very much for making a repeat appearance. I love having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a great time. I was looking forward to this week. Thank you.
Awesome. So let me give you guys a little intro on Ana. Ana runs a company that she created called Miami Analytics. She was known for or still is known to me as Ana Analytics. I love it. It's got a great flow to it. And Ana's probably one of the smartest people I know. Honest to God, like when you hear Ana talk about the market in which the way that she does, it just makes you want to know your market even better than you think you already do. Because I promise you that Ana knows it way better than you. And so, and it's what you do, it's what you're great at, it's what you've excelled at. And we all follow you for it because we all want to know what's Ana thinking, what's Ana saying, how's my real estate market going to get affected? So I want to start off, a lot of our listeners are action takers. That's why they're listening to this, I wrote a book a couple years back called Take Action with the premise that everybody comes up with a plan, right? But very few people actually execute on their plan. So I want to ask you, the same thing I'm going to ask you, I ask people because your path is not my path. My path is not yours. We run two very different paths, right? And so what made you choose this niche, this path, and how did you find a way to succeed in it?
Yeah, great question. And this ties into that whole concept also of why people make plans and then don't take action, right? What's the friction? And I think that taking action comes without friction when you recognize and align with what you actually like to do and what makes you happy, then the action flows. If someone else tells you, oh, this is a great idea, you can make money this way. You can make money doing pretty much anything if you're good and if you're into it. People make money, millions of dollars trading sports cards. I could never do that. Nothing about that, right? So it's recognizing what you are naturally drawn to, what you like to do, and not making like a fear or scarcity-based decision to do something someone tells you should do. And I think we spend so much of our lives in America in some hamster wheel of what school you went to, what you're supposed to do, that we lose touch of recognizing what actually makes us happy. Because if you align your action with what you're naturally drawn to, then the action flows. Otherwise, it's a grind.
I love that, man. I was listening to Gary Vee the other day, and Gary Vee, we all know Gary Vee. Gary Vee's rich. He's famous. He's this, he's that. He's a superstar on social media. And Gary Vee still does something that he's very passionate about, which is he likes to go to garage sales, which is insane to me that this multi-millionaire guy who has almost no time in the world, who like publicly admitted the other day that he hates traveling to speak in Europe because when he's exhausted, tired, and sleepy, New York is thriving and he wants to be in the thriving part of where his business is based. Right. So this guy's crazy busy. He still goes out and does garage sales. And he was talking about how he likes to look for sports stuff because he's a sports guy. Right. This is the future owner of the New York Jets, according to him. Right. So he found a sports card that he bought for like a few bucks and he traded it for $30,000. That was the value of the sports card. Like, how insane is that? Right. That's like
juice. Like he feels that he's in it. You can't manufacture that. That would be your real.
You can't. It has to be your groove, man. I love it. So you found your passion, and then what made you take action and turn it into a business?
Yeah. So I'm very good at seeing patterns and trends. Like I studied theoretical math and physics. I'm very nerdy besides my sports life, which is separate. So I'm just naturally drawn to that. Like I have fun looking at things and trying to figure out where they're going, what the directionality is, so forth. And I grew up in New York City. I moved to Miami Beach about 8 years ago. And when I decided that I was going to stay here, I started to learn about the city. And real estate's a huge portion. It's a huge part of the city story, and the rapid rate at which the city has transformed and grown and still is. And so I started learning about the real estate markets, and I started, consuming content. And I was unimpressed, to put it euphemistically, by what was put out by major brokerages in terms of the markets here. And the markets, the resi markets specifically, are a very simple closed data set. It's not voodoo. It's mostly on market, right? The vast majority of it. It's like a linear 2-dimensional data set. It's very simple. There's no reason why it should be obfuscated. Just tell people what it really is. And then especially in resi, for most people, your house is the most significant purchase that you make for most people. And so I think that there should be some truth and clarity to what's going on in the market. Up or down, it's a cycle, but tell people what it is. Tell them where it is in the cycle.
Right.
And that's what I started doing. And so I started putting it out. I used to do it just with clients that I worked with. And then one of my mentors was like, no, make it public. And to me, it was so obvious. I'm like, this information's so obvious. He says, no, it's not. Put it out there. And that's when I started putting it out there.
That's amazing. And when you started putting out there, you started to get people like me who started to follow you so that I could better understand the market and get, for lack of better words, real news, right? What's happening in the market today. Because I agree with you. A lot of media and a lot of brokerages manufacture what they believe, twist it, turn it, and make it sound pretty all the time. And it's not always pretty.
No, and that's okay. It's a market. That's what happens. But it's like the boiler room. It's like the guy selling you the stocks, selling you the research report too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. And I thought that, come on, it doesn't have to be that way. And I mean, now there's good news in the market. And I'm saying that, right? It doesn't have to be that way. We just have to recognize the cycle.
And we've been, communicating for a couple years now. And I think, in those couple years, I've heard your theories and I've seen what happened in the market. And they oftentimes correlate, and we've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And we've foreseen things that we thought were going to go one direction. And then all of a sudden the world surprised us. Right. Really? So like, I remember I think it was beginning of 2019. Was it 2019? Oh my God. Very beginning of 2019, right? Very beginning of 2019, you and I sat down in my office with two other people, Rudy Hernandez, owner of New World Title, and there was another person there. I can't remember who it was, but I'm sure I can pull this podcast. And he was with a national title company. And we started talking about what was happening in the market and the scarcity and how nervous we were about 2019. And then all of a sudden, 2019 turned out to be a breakthrough year following into 2020 when it was furthermore breakthrough. And then COVID hit and we're like, oh, the breakthrough's over. And then we broke a glass ceiling, right? So what's happening right now? Anna, talk to me about this, because everything's volatile right now. The real estate market's nuts. The stock market's nuts. For God's sakes, GameStop went up 1,600%. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What in the world are they selling at GameStop now? So
too. Who knows?
Yeah, I started looking at this stuff and I'm going, everything is on the way up. And then, of course, you get a lot of news that says there's a new administration in place. Things may change. But I just don't, I don't see, listen, I don't care what party you are. I don't see Biden coming in and going, interest rates are now 8%. I don't have that control.
No one. The credit cycle is bigger than the president. If you look at the history of credit markets and the interest rates, and you look at long-term charts, you can't spot on the chart where the new president came. There's no
correlation there.
No.
Right. So talk to me about what's happening in Miami. Let's get Miami specific.
So what's happening in Miami? So everything is not going up. San Francisco rents had their steepest ever decrease on record. It was 2 months ago. It was like a 25 or 2% drop year over year. New York City is not doing so well either in terms of rental pricing. So everything is not going up. Miami is doing well, but everything is not. So what we're having is we entered COVID. At the beginning of COVID, it was sort of this period of radical uncertainty. No one knew what was going to happen. No one knew the time frames. No one knew anything. As the time frame developed and became longer and longer and longer, what it did was force habit shifts. Habits are sticky. They don't change unless they have to. And we're right now in this accelerated phase of shifting habits. And places like Miami, like Austin, Texas, are on the positive receiving end of these habit shifts. So what's happening is there are these super cycles. Every 100 years or so, the world changes. And most people, it's human nature, fall into this trap of thinking that the present is sacrosanct. How it is how it's going to be. And that cannot be further from the truth, right? If you look back 100 years, how people lived versus how people live today, it's very different. So why wouldn't we assume that 100 years from now, it'll be just as different again, right? So going into COVID, we were living in ways we can't foresee. We have these devices that were magic 100 years ago. We don't know what's coming, right? So going into COVID, we had we were still living in the post-World War II, post-Bretton Woods, concentrated hegemony in America, period, right? And then the internet came, but nothing changed for the internet. The internet was adapted into existing infrastructure, into schools, into offices, all that stuff, right? It was just brought in, but habits didn't change. So what COVID did is it forced habit changes in how we work, how we go to school. It just forced it because you couldn't go anymore. You had to adapt. So it kind of accelerated all of us into the internet age. And part of what's happening is that these, I'll call them pre-internet epicenters, like dense places like New York City, the financial center there, Silicon Valley, whatever, they're dissipating because people have realized the habit's been changed. They don't have to be there. Right. And so people are dispersing, and Miami's on the receiving end of that for various reasons. It's lifestyle, taxation, all those places are like New York City's like a negative feedback loop with kicking capital out as fast as they can, right? So is California. And so we're on the receiving end of that. The world is shifting. This is like the first shift in like the post-internet. Miami's winning.
And that's, I mean, look, dude, Miami's smart for that, or Florida's smart for pushing that and letting people know, hey, this is sort of a safe haven, if you will, right? I remember the last crash. We crashed the hardest, but we were also one of the first ones to pick back up. And it's because we are that destination place where people want to be. Like, just speaking from personal experience, my best friends, they just moved here with their kids. And they were in Northern Virginia, right? So COVID hits, he's working from home, and he asked the big question, hey guys, do you think I'd just continue to do this? And the company said, sure, you can work remotely. And he said, okay, well, here's the next big question. Can I leave Virginia? Are you guys okay with that? And they were like, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna be working from home, you could be anywhere you want. Boom, that was a light, because now he's not paying Virginia taxes anymore. He just moved to Miami. He's going to pay Miami taxes. He's a veteran. He's going to get benefits and those tax benefits as well, right? And he moved here in December, and first thing he did was jump in his new pool in December, right?
You're done. You do that once, you're done. You're not going back.
Yes, and that's it. That's it. And he's stoked about being here. What a difference in lifestyle, right? So the world has taken a significant change. Now that Miami's on the receiving end of that, and I see a lot of, we see a lot of people coming in from outside of Miami, but I also see a lot of movement within Miami, especially in the single family market. Talk to me about that.
Well, the single family market is super good. We reached record transaction volume in some portions of it, actually, in Q4 of last year in December. The segment of that market actually that picked up the most was million plus, which actually is not local movement, it's destination, it's people moving their families. Below is also moving but as a percentage change, 1 to 3 million single family is like through the roof, because that's people presumably from the Northeast moving their families down here. Literally record transaction volume. Inventory has just plummeted. Inventory has plummeted across the board for single family, but it's just interesting to see that the million plus was best performing. And also for the condo market, million plus received the biggest uptick in transaction volume. And that used to be the most troubled segment.
And we haven't seen that in quite some time.
No.
When was the last time we saw an uptick in million plus condo?
No, actually, I just put together some data for a news piece that's coming out that shows that 3-bedroom condos were the best performing segment. Isn't that crazy? That used to be the worst. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, those are families. Exactly. Those are families.
I'm super excited about that, because for a while there, we had this huge inventory of condominiums, and we all looked at it like this. I don't know how this is going to be. Exactly. Buying this.
Nobody was. That's what was happening.
Nobody was.
Exactly.
We would see a new development come up, and we would see the prices. Yes. We would see the price per square foot for the COA, and I would look at this and I would go, dude, I make good money, and I still can't see myself buying something like this. I couldn't.
Exactly. Exactly, but there's a new stream of buyers now. Another interesting stat that I'm putting out now is that I think of the second half of 2020 is really the start of the COVID economy. So we start seeing the effects of migration is in the second half of that year. So comparing the whole year to previous years doesn't really work, because we had that.
Right.
If we compare H2 2020 to H2 2019, the second half of the year, we see that change. And in the second half of 2020, the tri-counties, so Palm Beach counties, Broward, and Miami-Dade, an extra $9 billion was spent in residential real estate.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. That's amazing.
Real. That's real.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, and we're seeing it like boots on the ground. We're doing an open house. We did an open house in Homestead, out of all places, the other day. We had 60 families go through there in 2.5 hours, and 25 offers come in.
Exactly.
Like, you know, absolute insanity.
Exactly.
You know, now here's a question I have for you. And, you know, one of the biggest concerns that you start to see a lot in the market is that so many people went into this forbearance period. So many people might possibly be facing a foreclosure. But yet we see a lot of movement, very heavy in the market. People are selling houses for record prices. You know, there's buyers lined up down the block for these houses. Like, it's a very kind of weird situation, because I feel like we're seeing what's happening now, but we can almost see what's about to happen. Talk to me about that, because I often, you know, I coach and I've got my teams, and I tell my teams all the time, guys, love right now. Like, love it, work it, 50 hours a day. Like, just take out as many clients, close as many deals as you can, stuff your savings account, because it will not last forever.
Agree. We have a number of unsustainable metrics from a macroeconomic standpoint that no one knows how it's going to play out. I mean, we have, if you look at a chart of jointly with the stock market, for instance, and the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, ding, 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 direct correlation, right?
Right.
This is a function of monetary policy that's gone insane, and not just here, but all around the world, right? We have record levels of sovereign debt yielding negative. It was 18 trillion it hit. This is with the ECB, the Bank of Japan, and our Federal Reserve. So we've never in the history of money had negative yielding debt. Like, no one knows where this goes. It's kind of fascinating. And at the same time that we've had this juice stock market, which of course benefits people with financial assets, right? At the same time that this is happening, we have almost all of job losses resulting from pandemic issues being borne by the lowest earners. And so it's further accelerating the wealth divide in America rapidly.
Right.
So where this goes, it's not a very sustainable or good situation. You're right. I have no one knows where it goes, but I don't even know what the exit is from this, because interest rates have to be where they are to try to, all the Fed is doing, like the crux of what the Federal Reserve is doing, is trying to forestall a crash in debt.
Right.
That's it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if interest rates were 8%, this wouldn't be happening.
Correct. Well, also, like, leading into COVID, this is the thing, the setup was all there leading into COVID. Leading into COVID in the United States, we had a record amount of corporate debt at the last rung before junk. When stuff hits junk, it has to get dumped by pension funds. It's like a whole thing, right? So this whole debt situation was in place before COVID. And then COVID has just made it go like this. And whenever you see charts approach the asymptote, approach vertical, they can't, because vertical is infinity, right? So whenever something approaches a vertical, it means that there's some like not so pretty exit coming. We don't know what, but like change is imminent. And we're kind of there in a lot of indicators. So I agree with you. No one knows. We're in the period of radical uncertainty. Nobody knows. So I agree with you. Get it while the going is good. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah,
that's crazy, Anna. And I think, you know, and typically you live your life on doing analytics on this kind of stuff. And for the first time, you could probably say in your lifetime, you can actually look at all your charts and see everything go, I have no idea what December 2021 is going to look like.
When I look at data that's just a genome, you want to try to recognize when things are at extremes, either lows or highs, right? Because they seldom stay there. They could for a little bit, but they seldom stay there. So when you see things that are complete outliers and there are these extreme conditions, you don't know where it's going to go. It creates tensions. It creates tensions, momentum. And it creates also a lot of fear and uncertainty in the population, which is also why people are moving right now. It's kind of, and also why the single family home market, I believe, has done better down here than the condos, because single family homes were a reflexive response to the pandemic. People felt safer about them.
Okay, so now we're talking about Miami, and you said something earlier that triggered a new question. And you know, you said, look, San Francisco's not doing that great. You know, New York is not doing that great. New York took a big hit. I grew up in New York, right? I grew up in New York too. So where, you know, I'll ask you as a fellow New Yorker, where would you rather be locked up for COVID? In your 500 square foot $1 million apartment in Manhattan facing another building's wall, or in your, you know, $400,000 condo facing the Miami River, or the $1 million condo facing Miami Beach? Like, it's a no-brainer, right? Exactly. And if you're stuck at home and you can work from home and you start to realize, you know what, this might be the future, you know, which I'm with EXP now. We shut down our brokerage, and it was almost like people are like, A cloud brokerage? You can't have a cloud brokerage. And I remember when COVID hit, I was like, ha, look at you all on Zoom now. You know? They've been doing this for 10 years, y'all. You know?
You know, you're 100% correct. And this is going back to that concept of like forcing the habit change. People could have done it before, but they didn't because they were set in their ways. The ways were shaken up. They've gone to the other place and now they're like, it's nicer here and I can do it from here.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, look, a friend of mine lives in Huntington Beach, California, right? He just said that he's moving to Tulum. Moving. Most people are going on vacation there. He's moving to Tulum. Why? Because he can buy a $40,000 condo on the beach in Tulum. Everything over there is super healthy and super eco-friendly and this and that and blah, blah. He loves that lifestyle. He's a surfer. He loves to surf and he works from home.
Exactly.
He runs his business from his home office. I spent a few days with him when we did our motorcycle trip, and every time he was at work, he was sitting on the sofa, you know. And then at 2 o'clock with him, he'd be like, "Hey, Dave, I'll be back in an hour." He'd grab his surfboard and walk over to the beach and come back, you know.
Yes, exactly. No, exactly. And also, just to get credit, the mayor of Miami, Mayor Suarez, is killing it. He's doing an amazing job with the Move to Miami tech campaign that's gone viral. Like,
awesome.
It's such a great example of someone stepping up into the moment and shining the light where it needs to be. So well done. And that's real, by the way. Like, tech is coming here, not just financial stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
And, you know, we forget how quickly things can change. Like Silicon Valley wasn't even a term until 1971. Some reporter coined it. And then it wasn't even like a daily term until the 80s. So things change. It doesn't have to be there forever. And
right away.
Yeah, we're one of the best airports in the country. You get to keep more of your money here, high quality of life. It's great. And it's just begun.
So back to the question I wanted to point at. What's happening in New York, San Francisco, LA?
Yeah, so
what's happening in these cities?
I think that they're on, you know, momentum is a real thing. Like municipalities, states, countries, they're like large boats, right? They don't just go like this. They move in a certain way. And momentum is a real force. And those places are on a negative, like momentum feedback loop, unfortunately, right?
Right.
Again, I dislike both political parties, so it's not coming from there. I'm just kind of observing the patterns here. I mean, we have the mayor of New York quoting Karl Marx to the press. Like, I'm not making that up. Like, he does that. He quotes Karl Marx to the press. And it's like a dark comedy. They're enacting policies that only further push out capital. As people, at the same time that people have realized they can work from where they want to live, these places are further pushing the negative momentum. And like New York is like, it was in the press. They were floating some like new $2 million plus tax bracket. California keeps floating a retroactive exit tax. Like, don't think people are scared of that. Of course they are. Like all sorts of things. They have these budget shortfalls already. And they're going to get more and more from losses of property values in New York City, everything else, and then just capital going. Was it something like only 188,000 people, tax filers, account for half of the $50 billion that New York collects in taxes, right? So 40,000 of them leave. Like, what have you done? Like, you've destroyed your tax base. And they have money, they have homes elsewhere, they can. And so the whole city is shut down. All the things that you feel you're getting for your money aren't there. You've changed your habits. The city is increasingly hostile towards capital. De Blasio is moving in hotels full of homeless people in the Upper West Side and residential areas. The streets look like 1970s war zones. Like, where is this going? And then they're floating new tax brackets, all those things. So it's like, unfortunately, it's like a script that always plays itself. They're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep enacting more and more agendas like this while capital flees. They're going to get more belligerent about trying to keep it in, thereby pushing it out. And unfortunately, they can't build a wall, so people will leave.
Yeah.
So it's just, they would if they could. I believe that. So like, it's just begun. It's just begun.
Wow, that's crazy. And so that leads me to something else. I'm thinking about while you're talking about this and capital leaving these major cities and coming to homes like ours, which, by the way, New York, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you know, hey, make my city amazing. You know, California, thank you. Silicon Valley, thank you. Like, bring them on over. I'm happy to have everyone in South Florida, Amazon, tech billionaires, like you name it, bring them. You know, we want them all.
Bill bought a house recently here. It was disclosed.
Yeah, I saw that.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
so what about, let's talk about it on a commercial aspect, right? Because one of the things that I noticed with COVID is that commercial real estate took a big hit because businesses couldn't stay open, right? And so now as businesses begin to realize that they actually don't need a space, what happens to the commercial market?
Yeah, good question. So there's a lot of, we're seeing some creative repurposing of stores, like ground level retail and things like this. Like I was talking to what major US chain was making all their new locations like only drive-through, like 5 drive-through windows and things like this. So people are repurposing sort of for a to-go world. But beyond that, I don't really know. I think it's still early days. The hotel industry, of course, is in major trouble because global air travel is still decimated. Like people are just not traveling anywhere near to where they were. So there's probably going to be massive consolidation in the hotel space. Probably 30% of hotels will change hands the next few years, is my guess.
Wow.
Because they can't hold the debt. They're trying to kick the can down the road as much as they can, but this isn't ending. And they were very levered going into it. So that's going to be. And that's a good play actually now because travel will come back. It just might take 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's going to come back. Like I think it's going to take a few years, but it will. And if you can get a great hotel asset for a really good price because that person can't hold the debt, can't hold the note, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about stocks the other day. My wife and I were talking about like an American Airlines stock.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how if you just jumped into American Airlines and Boeing right now and just forgot about it for the next 5 years. Because people will begin to travel again. People, the world will come back to normality, right?
What's a new thing? It never goes back. Like it'll be something different.
Yeah, but people still going to travel.
They're going to travel.
Yeah, people still going to jump on a plane to get somewhere.
Yes, the travel, I agree. The travel will come back, but how people shop and use retail, I think, has just the shifts are just accelerated to
absolutely insane. Movie theaters, I think, are in trouble.
Oh, hugely.
Yeah, movie theaters, I think, are in big trouble just because, when you start looking at all these apps and they're doing same day as in theater, like why go to the theater for the experience?
I'm like, room for $20 in a dirty chair with come on, Yeah, exactly.
I'd rather spend, $1,000, get me a killer surround sound system and watch it in my living room in shorts and a t-shirt with my family right there.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm totally with you, man. It's fun times, folks, but scary times because we don't know what's to come. And if I could leave, this episode and put something in everybody's head is enjoy this moment and realize that it will not last forever. So enjoy this moment, realize it will not last forever, and capitalize as much as you can, and capitalize on a couple things. Number one, money, right? Stack the cheese because you're going to need to eat later, right? And second, relationships. Capitalize on relationships. Make sure that you are making your relationships with your consumers and your partners rock solid, because when the world changes, you want to be able to have strong enough relationships with those people to continue to have a workspace and a workplace. All right. And any final words for anybody out there?
Yeah, 1,000%. Just to echo what you said there. And also to train your mind to accept that change is good. Don't fight it. Change is good. This is just the nature of the world. There's kind of two constants in history, change and human nature. And time always moves forward, and you can't fight it, and embrace it. Embrace the time, enjoy it. We're in a historic period. This is like that once in 100 years shift in the world. So just relax, stay healthy, stay positive, and then allow yourself to see where that shift is going and just align with it. And change is good. I'm very optimistic on the future here. And especially if you're in South Florida, I think we're all very lucky to be here.
Awesome, Anna. Thank you very much, very, very much for being on our 191st podcast with me. I appreciate you so much, and I hope to have you on many, many, many more times over the years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to the Take Action podcast with David Adam Kurz. Today's host, Ana Bozovic, was amazing. Where can they follow you on social media?
Oh, yeah. So Ana Analytics is basically how I'm known because no one can pronounce it. So find me on Instagram. It's Ana Analytics. And Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm everywhere.
Find her, follow her, and trust me when I tell you, you're going to enjoy seeing all the stuff that she puts out about analytics, and you're going to enjoy watching her boxing it out in the MMA gyms. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for tracking our video today and our podcast today. You'll be able to find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, as well as multiple podcast channels such as Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Android podcasts. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in. Tune in each and every time we post a new episode. Subscribe, get that notification. We love you out there, and we wish you mad success.
Thank you.